Hello, everybody. Today I am joined by veteran freelance journalist and author Tara Nurin. Tara often uses liquid lubricants as her mirror to reflect broader societal trends. The former Forbes beer and spirits contributor trains her eyes, ears, and typing fingers on the places where food and beverage intersect with business, culture, history, sustainability, and identity. Her first book, A Woman's Places in the Brewhouse, A Forgotten History of Alewives, Brewsters, Witches, and CEOs, won first place from the North American Guild of Beer Writers. She is the executive director of the Transcending Trauma Program, which focuses on mental well-being and healing in the beverage alcohol industry through the practical application of transcendental meditation and proven workplace wellness strategies. Tara, I'm excited to have you here today. How have you been?
I've been good. Thank you. It's nice to see you. I know you are coming off a busy week.
Yes, I definitely need to take some time off and relax. So I'm excited for this session, but I want to know, why is this topic important to you?
Yeah, so many reasons. But to kind of put it into a nutshell, the 2 to 3 years I was writing and editing and promoting my book were the busiest years of my life. I had so much going on. I was so stressed out. I was so miserable. I was so maybe awful to the people I love. And I just kept feeling like this isn't sustainable. I literally will die. This stress is going to kill me. And so I was really fortunate to be able to decenter work for about a year and a half. I do work for myself, so I didn't have to like make a big proclamation about it. But I spent that year and a half doing everything I could to kind of restructure my personal and professional life. And the main thing I did to try to build capacity in myself, to build resilience, to make myself more of a calm, compassionate, patient person was I learned Transcendental Meditation, as you read in my bio. I've been practicing it for about 2 years now. And, there's always more work to do, but I can tell you that I've noticed, my family and friends have noticed that I am really very much calmer. I'm nicer to my mom. And I just can't imagine some days when I'm really stressed out still what it would have been like a couple of years ago before I started learning TM. And so it's really important to me to be able to create healthier workspaces in beverage alcohol because I know that we all feel burnt out a lot of the time. Yeah.
Well, these are really important conversations to have. I know a lot of us in the industry often feel this way, so I'm excited to learn from you today, and I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks. All right. Well, I'm going to get started with the video, and I apologize in advance. This woman talks too quickly for Google to make a clean edit, so it's a little sloppier than I would have liked, but you get the idea.
That as soul-sucking emptiness and despair where caring and passion for my work used to exist. A lack of joy in success and mounting dread of my failures. Exhaustion, apathy, and dread every time I think about work. Desire to curl up and never move, which is actually...
Right? How many of you can relate to any of what she just said? I know I can relate to a lot of it, at least at different points in my life. So in 2019, the World Health Organization classified burnout as an occupational phenomenon for the first time and defined it as, quote, a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. Who, along with a lot of other experts in the field, collectively define burnout as cumulative stress that leads to exhaustion, pessimism, negativity or cynicism, and reduced professional efficacy and diminished self-worth. I know when I was writing my book, just the self-talk was terrible. Burnout can also cause depression and anxiety and lead to long-term physical and mental health problems, including, but certainly not at all limited to coronary artery disease, hypertension, sleep disturbances, and even increased alcohol and drug use, which I guess probably isn't a surprise. So if you're feeling burnt out, you are definitely very, very far from alone. In a recent survey of a few hundred craft brewery employees and owners, more than 80% report themselves either somewhat or completely burnt out. You can check it out right there on the screen. The good news is there is a lot you can do to prevent, mitigate, and reduce burnout in yourself and your employees and even your coworkers. The material online that's available that talks about dealing with burnout is endless. Luckily, I am here to parse it for you and give you an introduction into the topic. As you listen to the session, please do, though, think about how you might be able to apply what we're talking about to yourself and to your workplace as a whole. Even if you're not in a position of management, even if you're not in a position to implement change company-wide, I really encourage you to advocate for yourself and make holistic health a regular part of your conversations with colleagues. A year or two ago, I attended the Pink Boots conference as a speaker, and I just was not in a great place mental health-wise at the time. And it was the main conversation I was having because a lot of us were really kind of freaked out and burnt out at the time. And every time we would run into each other, even if we didn't know each other very well, we'd give each other like a, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And I still carry that around with me and feel nurtured by that weekend. So at the very least, even if you feel disempowered to talk to your supervisors, find colleagues in and out of your workspace to share your struggles. And as we'll talk about later, as I said, I do want you to advocate for yourself to create a better space for yourself at your work, if possible. And we'll look at how to do that. So how do I recognize burnout? Emily Nagosi, author of Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, says, burnout is the feeling of being overwhelmed and exhausted by everything you have to do while still worrying that you are not doing enough. I know I resonate with that very deeply. Even after 2 years of meditating, it's a process. Tessa West, author of Jerks at Work, fun name, Toxic Coworkers and What to Do About Them, says you can experience only so many daily stressors, spikes in blood pressure and spikes in cortisol. Eventually, you get what's called a dampened response. You shut down. You don't have the cognitive, emotional, and physiological resources required to engage. And do like a self-check right now. If you're listening to this, I'm sure you probably are. Do you feel this way? People do emphasize, as you can tell from these definitions, it's more than just being kind of exhausted. It's more than just like feeling depressed one week. It's just this complete overload, right? And distancing empathetically. In others, keep an eye out for tiredness, lack of focus, depressed mood, hostility, and expressions of hopelessness. Check in on them. So who's most likely to suffer from burnout? McKinsey & Company, which is a global leader in management consulting, conducted a major burnout study across 30 countries last year, and it found higher burnout symptoms reported by young workers aged 18 to 24, employees from smaller companies, and non-managers. My guess is that if you work at a brewery, at a craft brewery, this is a lot of your workforce. Almost half of working women reported feeling burned out in 2022. Why? Well, obviously, there are many, many reasons for that, but top among them, specific to women, in part, a higher incidence of discrimination and toxicity. And the more intersectionalities you've got, the more you're exposed to discrimination and toxicity. So what's one way to assess this at your workplace? Conduct an audit of who gets promoted at your company. Women, especially those with multiple intersectionalities like women of color, gay women, etc., are much less likely to be promoted at each rung of the corporate ladder, especially from entry level to the second tier. It's not getting to the C-suite that's the hardest. It's going from level 1 to level 2. So I don't have to remind anybody watching this about this wake-up call in 2021. Women who experience microaggressions in the workplace struggle to feel psychologically safe and self-shield by muting their voices, code switching, or hiding important aspects of themselves. And I don't want to diminish any of what happened or what came out. A lot of that was much worse than microaggressions, but a lot of what we're looking at here on this screen, most of those are microaggressions. The stress caused by all of this cuts really deep, y'all. Women who experience microaggressions at the workplace are 4 times more likely to almost always feel burned out and 3 times more likely to think about leaving their companies. That might be a wake-up call to managers and owners struggling with retention. So thanks in part to the Me Too movement and the pandemic as well, the work world is finally starting to support the idea that burnout is bad for business. McKinsey says this. McKinsey has a core belief that a modern definition of health is integrated and holistic and spans physical, mental, social, and spiritual health. We are currently going through a big cultural transformation as downtime, recovery time, and recharging time are increasingly recognized as part of peak performance. So that doesn't really jive with Elon Musk's firing all of his employees at Tesla and making the ones who stayed sleep at work. Not trending. Even the GOAT agrees we need to prioritize recovery in ourselves and our workplaces. He's even put out a line of Under Armour sleepwear. Sorry, that's supposed to just play and it's not. Uh-oh. Help. All right, in a minute I'm going to skip it. I set it up to play. It's not playing. Well, that was one of my favorite parts of the video, even though I'm not a huge Tom Brady fan. He basically talks about how critical rest is to his regimen. He says that without rest, he's not able to perform at his best. And a lot of people think he's a good football player. Sorry about that.
Your ability to perform is only as good as your ability to recover. And recovery doesn't just start when your game or workout ends. Recovery is a 24/7 process, and everything matters. From the foods you eat to how much you drink, how much you sleep, it all has an impact. Preparing your body before a workout or game can have a huge effect on how you feel after. Focusing on recovery has helped me play at my best for the past 20 years. And when you focus on recovery, you give your body what it needs to repair itself and be ready for any challenge.
So, when asked about aspects of their jobs that undermine their mental health and well-being, employees frequently cite always being on call, unfair treatment, unreasonable workload, low autonomy, and lack of social support. However, in all countries surveyed by McKinsey, toxic workplace behavior was the biggest predictor of burnout symptoms and intent to leave. You see here on the slide how a toxic environment can magnify the incidence of reported burnout symptoms and intention to leave within 3 to 6 months. Employers, it can cost double an employee's salary to replace them. So how do we combat burnout? You can't just take a vacation because your stressors will be right there waiting for you. You have to build them into your routine in order to build the resilience that you need for work and life sustainability. Huffington Post founder Arianna Huffington has devoted this phase of her career to spreading awareness of burnout after she passed out at her desk and broke her cheekbone and needed 5 stitches back in 2007. She has one simple answer.
Because of that, I studied, I met with medical doctors, scientists, and I'm here to tell you that the way to a more productive, more inspired, more joyful life is getting enough sleep.
Hear that? Sleep. Okay, maybe you're rolling your eyes right now. You're like, yeah, of course I need more sleep. Everyone needs more sleep. But here's the deal. Listen to what McKinsey, again, I stress, a global management consulting firm, like as corporate as it gets. This is what McKinsey says. Sleep is the foundation of our immunity, mental health, and cognitive performance. It is not a time of inactivity. Rather, sleep is a time of profound activity in the brain. It's the only time that our brain can clean up the toxins that collect during the day. And if we don't clean them up, they accumulate. In addition to sleep, proven personal activities to stop stress from accumulating include things like exercising, getting into nature, and practicing gratitude. Yeah, I know. We've all heard all of that stuff. Most of us are like, yeah, when do I have the time? My boss doesn't let me sleep. My boss is anti-sleep, etc. Well, Arianna recommends starting with what she calls micro activities. I'm a huge fan of these. Those are habits too small to fail. So what does that mean? Spend, say, 60 seconds on the toilet in the morning, setting your intentions for the day. While you're brushing your teeth, think of 3 reasons to be grateful. Do some conscious breathing while you wash the dishes. Get up and walk around your desk twice. My boyfriend tells me all the time he's going to wake up in the morning at like 5 o'clock and meditate for an hour. And in the 5 years we've been together, I've seen him do it this many times, 0. I'm always like, why don't you say you're going to wake up at 7 and meditate for 10 minutes? Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. If you start with small habits, you then have established the habit and you can build on it. So some of the things that I do, like I said, I do work for myself, so I can set my schedule however I want. I schedule work breaks at least every 2 hours, which is what some productivity experts advise. Some say take a 10-minute break every hour. That sounds a little oppressive to me. But so take breaks, schedule breaks, and take them. And I try to take a 5 to 10-minute walk during each one of my breaks. As I mentioned at the top, among other things, I do also do transcendental meditation for 20 minutes twice a day to bookend my work day. And here on the slide, I won't go over them, but you can take a look and see some of the proven benefits, both personally and professionally, of transcendental meditation. I cannot recommend it enough. Please talk to me if you're interested. Now I'm going to switch, though, from talking about things we can do in our own personal lives to what we can do to reduce burnout triggers at work. Because as McKinsey says, and I love this quote, might be my favorite one of the whole presentation, you can't just yoga away the problem. And that applies to you and your employers. So evidence suggests that individual growth, learning, and development programs are effective ways to combat burnout. These quote unquote enablers, which are aspects of work that provide positive energy, the enablers help to effectively offset challenges, and they can actually speak louder to employees than money. Offering lateral career opportunities was 2.5 times more predictive of employee retention than compensation was. And it was also more predictive than promotions. Here we see a fabulous compilation of data gathered by the craft beer professionals team. And if you take a look, we see a radical shift toward enablers as part of a compensation plan in craft brewing from just last year to this year. As you can see, compensation packages shifted to include a greater mix of PTO, sick leave, health insurance, pension, parental leave, a fitness stipend, and mental health services. Now, I love this. Perhaps as a result, workers reported themselves happier this year than last. I can't make this stuff up. An estimated 9 out of 10 organizations around the world offer their employees some kind of wellness program. And that's anything from a yoga class to meditation apps, to subsidized therapy, to well-being days or productivity trainings. However, as I said, enablers are important, but the basics do have to be there. No organizational factor protects against burnout symptoms in highly toxic environments. I'll read that again. No organizational factor protects against burnout symptoms in highly toxic environments. So, to help cultivate a healthy, satisfying workplace, owners and managers, most importantly, need to provide and practice sustainable working norms, psychological safety, and control over and meaning from work. I'm going to list some ways to cultivate these. Some might sound obvious, but I do want to emphasize where research shows you might get maximum bang for your buck. If you're an employee and you're not getting some of these basics, ask for it. I know it can be scary. I hate hard conversations, but it's really much, much better for everybody if you don't wait until you've gotten bitter and resentful. Supervisors report that they usually feel that they can manage small fires a lot better than big ones. So if you come to them with small problems on a regular basis, presto, you're more likely to get what you want, and your manager is probably going to have more capacity to give it to you. Example, and this actually works. Just 2 days ago, my tenant came home thrilled. He'd been looking for a new job after just 2 months in a new teaching position that had him working 65 hours a week. He was burning out fast. Well, he talked to his administrators and got more than he expected. He got 2 uninterrupted planning periods up from none. So now he can do most of his work at work instead of at home until midnight every night. So what are some of these sustainable working norms that we're talking about? Again, they might sound obvious, but I think they always bear repeating, and laid out, they might give you some ideas. Set maximum working hours per day or per week. Limit work communications to certain hours. So I have a policy, I have a couple assistants, and I have a policy that says, I'm going to Slack you at all hours of the day and night. Turn off your notifications when you're not working. I need to brain dump at whatever hours I'm working, but I do not expect you to write me back. And I don't want you to be reading them if you're like having date night, if you're Netflix and chilling with your beau. Don't answer my emails. So I feel that that's a very important thing, to at least set up that expectation or schedule emails for work hours, etc. Have conversations with your team about its collective capacity and ensure that assignments and deadlines don't exceed it. We can all relate to this. And my tenant, for example, was just getting more and more and more work asked of him, and nothing was getting taken away. So until he said something, they were just going to keep giving him work, and he was just going to get more and more burnt out. And create uninterrupted time for people to work on important tasks. Yeah, couldn't this have been an email? Or in my brother's case, not to be too personal, every phone call could have been a text. So we all need uninterrupted focus time to work. The productivity experts I follow call that deep work. If you can, create time on your schedule for that. Don't accept meetings. And if you're in a position to, create a culture where everybody's sort of instinct isn't to just throw a meeting on the calendar. Psychological safety. Here we are. Here's where we talk about the toxic workplace again. Here's how you create a safe workspace where people feel good to report to work. Just a few ways to get into it. Manager training is critical here. Managers must be given practical plans or be empowered to develop their own practical plans to clearly communicate what's expected of each role on the team. Employees report a lack of control or a lack of knowing what their expectations are is very, very debilitating and a huge cause of burnout. So make sure everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to do and how to do it. As a manager, monitor employee interactions, not like Big Brother, but you want to make sure that workers aren't feeling excluded or bullied or receiving any demeaning remarks. I mean, here we go back to microaggressions again and all the other mental health stressors that being around people who aren't nice to you can create. In fact, liking your coworkers is one of the top predictors of happiness at work, and a top predictor of prevention, of burnout prevention. This is really important. You want to introduce anonymous mental health pulse checks in your team and hire an independent reporting service to provide objective solutions to the problems that arise. As you've heard over the past couple of years, I'm sure, and as I preach a lot in the talks I give, HR companies are not always the best places for employees to talk about their concerns. They are not viewed as being on the side of the employee. And so an employee needs a safe, anonymous place where they can go and report their troubles, and those report lines are very well trained in how to remediate situations in ways that are safe and satisfactory to the person filing the report. Discuss employee mental health and well-being regularly in leadership and team meetings. How's everyone doing? What's our mental health focus for this week or for this month? Make sure that it's something that's part of the conversation. And lead by example, whether you're the founder, whether you have just been hired hourly. We can all lead by example with leaders and everybody else describing their own personal struggles with mental health, and being sure to do it in non-stigmatizing terms. Leaders showing vulnerability really helps to remove shame and promote a psychologically safe culture, and begin to shift perception of burnout and other mental health needs as something that reflects a moral failing. In the business world, oh, you need to sleep. Oh, you're breaking down. You need a rest. What's wrong with you? Are you weak? That's not the way things are going to be working in the future, and happily starting to not work that way now. A lot of people report that they feel senior leadership is more successful when they do show humanity, when they show compassion, when they show empathy. I'm going to practice this right now. Just this afternoon, I told my assistant, Amanda, who is actually on this call right now. Hello. I told her this morning I had a stress and frustration cry. I don't know why I told her that, because she's also a good friend of mine, and she usually tells me it's going to be okay to take a breath and to drink some water with lemon. And usually, eventually it is okay. But, I very much feel that the more people talk about their own struggles, the more it makes it okay for other people to talk about struggles. Yeah, social media is a good place for this. Hey, everybody, I'm feeling really down today. You see people post, send me all your cat pictures, even if something as simple as that. Next, control over work. As I said, people need to feel that they have control over their own work. The single best way to do this is to set flexible schedules whenever possible. I know in production, other departments, that's not possible, but when you can, set flexible schedules to allow employees maximum possible control over when, where, and how work gets done. And to that, consider work from home when you can. A large number of women and men who work hybrid or remotely point to primary benefits of remote work being increased efficiency and productivity and less fatigue and burnout. Half of women and a third of men call significant flexibility in when and where employees work a top 3 factor in their company's future success. Meaningful work. Yeah, we all want to do work that we like and that we feel is important. How do we go about creating that for ourselves if it's not already, enough of our day? See if you can shift or delegate the activities you don't like to do. Obviously, that doesn't mean dump all the crappy stuff onto somebody else, but it means know what you do like to do that's part of your job, and know what you don't like to do that's part of your job, and see if somebody else likes to do that stuff you don't, and maybe you can switch tasks. I hate hand washing dishes. My mom likes it. It's relaxing. I don't get it, but guess what I never do with my mother? Wash dishes. That leaves me time to do something else that she doesn't like to do. And we're both happier. Take advantage of any training opportunities. Now, the craft beer professionals research showed that this year there were fewer training opportunities being offered to brewery employees than last year. I'm thinking that might be a function of, things sort of finally coming to a head economically after the pandemic and everything the economy is doing. But training is important to employees. It makes them feel like they are more invested in their careers and can do a better job at it. And then try to build passion projects into your work description. So see if maybe you can offload some of the stuff that you don't like in order to make time for things that are going to keep you excited and motivated. So how do you ask to shift your responsibilities to create time for a meaningful project like that? My tenant, when I asked him how he managed to get to planning periods, he said, well, I had a long conversation with my good friend who's an administrator first about how to have the conversation. He really emphasized that he was very careful in how he phrased it. Now, what are some of those things you can do? First, when you're having the conversation with your supervisor, cast a vision of the values that you hope to satisfy, and the vision of what it is that you'd like to do. Ken Coleman, the author of From Paycheck to Purpose, The Clear Path to Doing Work You Love, tells Fast Company magazine to say something like, I'm really grateful for this company and the job I have, and I want to grow professionally, and I've been looking around in my heart. That's very touchy-feely 2023. I've been looking around in my heart and examining my talents, what I love to do, and what results matter to me. Next, ask for what you need to get there. Things like additional training, new assignments, added responsibilities, and be sure to connect the effort to the anticipated results, showing your boss what they can expect from you in the future. And again, you want to make sure, if it's important to you, that you are getting paid for this work and that it's not getting dumped on top of all of your existing responsibilities, unless it's something that you want to take on. Want to create a book club at work or an ERG and you don't care about getting paid or time for it. Fabulous. More power to you, do it. But if you do want it to become part of your job description, you could say to your boss, do you think there's an opportunity to make a slight adjustment in my current job? I'm spending half my day doing work I love, and I'd like to bump that up to 80%. This is from Fast Company. I believe the additional time I spend on that type of work will generate this benefit. I'm willing to put in the extra time and effort if you're willing to help me. I would really like to take a course which connects to this project I'm working on. I'm happy to share what I learned with the team. Oh my God, what boss wouldn't love to hear that you want to do maybe not more work, but different work in order to improve the company? And I will read this quote because it makes me laugh. In the same article, Soon Yu, the author of Friction, Adding Value by Making People Work for It, says, your boss would have to be an asshole to say no to that, especially if you come in with some concrete things that would help your mastery and your autonomy. If it's in their authority, the boss is likely going to give you a trial. So I'm going to pause for 1 second before I get to wrapping this up. I do not see any comments, any questions. If you have a question right now, feel free to drop it in. And I will move on while anybody watching takes the time to do that. So to bring everything that we've been talking about together, instead of focusing on productivity with your employees, if you are a supervisor of some sort, what you really want to provide and message to your employees is a sense of control and a sense of purpose. The productivity should follow. And if you are watching this session thinking about yourself and your coworkers, because maybe you don't have people you supervise, if you can do some of these things and reframe your thinking to how can I exert more control over my job? How can I get more meaning out of my job? The productivity will hopefully follow and the motivation will follow too. So if you liked what you heard, and like I said, we just touched on the surface, if you'd like to bring a customized, in-depth wellness and burnout prevention program to your company or group, please definitely contact me about the Transcending Trauma Program, which I run under the guidance of the official Transcendental Meditation for Women nonprofit. I will put my contact information up at the end. We can incorporate meditation into your package or not. Tom Brady does it, just saying. So does Oprah Winfrey. I could go on. Or we can get you trained as an individual if you're interested. We work with Brianne Allen's Women of the Bevolution to directly benefit individuals who are suffering from craft beer work traumas. On the screen are some groups that do incredible work in the workplace wellness space. I wish I had time to talk about all of them, but I don't, so I'll talk about none of them. But they provide excellent resources, from articles to actual free programs you can bring into your workspace that, you know, provide like lesson plans and discussions and videos for creating a healthier workspace. I will shout out, actually, Lean In is great for that. Lean In Circles. That was created by Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook. Actually, I don't really love Facebook either, but it's a great program. There you go. That's my contact info. And now, if any of the presenters or audience members want to jump in and unmute yourselves and ask questions, please feel free.
Hey, Tara, thank you so much for being here. We actually do have a couple of quick questions if you have a moment.
All right.
Perfect.
And I will reveal you are the Amanda that is also my assistant. More than that, my everything, my chief of staff. So thank you. Hello. Tell me your questions.
So the group Women of the Vine and Spirits conducted a thorough study of women working in the beverage alcohol space and found some surprising reasons that women actually wouldn't consider a career in the industry if they had to do it all over.
Right.
Would you mind touching on some of those top reasons?
Yeah, sure. So do you want to take one guess as to what the top reason is? Not to put you on the spot.
Well, I have an advantage.
That's true. You saw
this presentation.
All right.
I've also lived through a lot of it.
So the top reason women working in beverage alcohol wouldn't do it again: lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, I've seen that stat so many times, and I still have to look at it and make sure I'm seeing it right. Unattractive income / pay is 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth. So above unattractive income pay as reasons not to join the beverage alcohol industry again are lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion, lack of exposure to career opportunities, and lack of work-life integration. And those are all three things we talked about today as things that impact burnout. Now, so actually, let me just pull out a couple other reasons from here that relate. Lack of a flexible schedule is one. 22% of people said they wouldn't consider a beverage alcohol career because of a lack of schedule. Unattractive benefits, lack of learning and development opportunities, and lack of challenging assignments. Now, obviously, those are just people's opinions. I think there are tremendous learning and development opportunities, but that's just me, and I'm fortunate to have access to those. Not everybody is. A couple other things about a couple other results from this study regarding women and burnout, Amanda, is that similar to the results of last year's study, only 1 in 10 women working in beverage alcohol believe there's been a significant positive change toward women overall in the last 5 years. So basically, almost no women think there's been significant positive change in the last 5 years. And only 57% of survey respondents think their company's culture is very accepting of their family personal commitments. So we have a lot of work to do. We're making progress slowly and have a long way to go.
Well, I think that perfectly segues into my next question, which is that you kind of talked about building resilience and how that helps people survive toxic work environments better, especially those with a lot of work left to do. But that doesn't necessarily equal good news for toxic employers, does it? Would you mind touching on that as well?
Sure. Like I said, there's nothing that any company can do to prevent burnout with positive enablers if there's a toxic workplace environment. So toxic workplace behavior should be addressed and eradicated and not just shifted to more adaptable employees. And what employers need to know is that McKinsey has found that employees with high adaptability are 60% more likely than their peers to say they intend to leave their organization if they're experiencing high levels of toxic behavior at work.
So going back to another point that you touched on, you said about 9 out of 10 employers around the world offer some sort of wellness program, which is fabulous. But is research finding them to be effective as a method of improving corporate culture overall?
Yeah. And another sort of the B side to that stat is across the globe, 4 in 5 HR leaders report that mental health and well-being is a top priority for their organization. 4 out of 5. But that's not how employees are feeling. They perceive it very differently. As laudable as any of those efforts are, McKinsey found that a lot of employers focus on the wrong thing, right? They focus way too much on the individual level interventions, like you mentioned. Those interventions remediate symptoms, but they don't resolve the causes of employee burnout. And McKinsey says, I'm going to read from them, employing these types of interventions may lead employers to overestimate the impact of their wellness programs and benefits and to underestimate the critical role of the workplace in reducing burnout and supporting employee mental health and well-being.
Perfect. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had right now. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, just please feel free to contact me, with any questions about Transcendental Meditation, about TTP, about burnout prevention, and I'd be happy to schedule a call and talk about it. Talk about how we can work together.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Go get some rest.